Hello. Make sure I'm coming through. Bear with me. If anybody's watching this later on, then currently streaming through Streamlabs, so it's been a bit of trial and error. Make sure I'm coming through on there. Yeah, okay. Audio is all fine. Yeah, I'm streaming on Streamlabs. It's a really good little tool, especially if you're like into kind of game streaming, I suppose, which obviously I'm not. I'm just kind of vlogging. We'll see if anybody turns up. I know it's an awkward time of the day, bank holiday weekend, people are kind of doing stuff anyway, so I'll try and not make this a long stream, as was last month. Last month was like 3 hours long, nearly. And I would arguably say I don't have that much to talk about this month, though I have read quite a bit, but I will try kind of condense it down. McPuffin, hi, thanks for joining, man. Good to see you around. That coffee, I haven't actually made it yet, as it's still warming in my carafe. I got a new coffee maker, and it takes obviously a little bit of a while to kind of brew. So I'm just looking at your Discord message. Yeah, no problem. I don't want to distract you from your work. Not a problem, man. Not a problem at all. Sucks to be working on a Sunday though, and the bank holiday weekend as well. And Bakamatsu, thank you for joining. I just sent you a message on Twitter, so thanks for joining. So I hope you guys are having a good weekend. It's a pretty quiet one for me. So anyway, I'll get a start. So I'm just reading your messages. Yesterday picked up a lot of Jiro Taniguchi stuff. I sold you on it. Good, awesome, man. Awesome, really good to hear it. I'll be interested to know what you've picked up. Send me a couple of pictures or something once they've arrived. Yeah, nice. All right, cool. Well, let's make a start. Bear in mind as well, it's been a couple of weeks since I've read these some of these things, and I am kind of talking about them chronologically as you know, when I actually read them at the start of the month. So at the start of August, I read Battle Angel Alita. The side stories. Let me just make sure it's coming through on the camera. Yeah, perfect. There we go. Holy Night and Other Stories. Now this comes with the box set anyway. So if you've got the box set, then likely you've probably read this already. But it's essentially just side stories. It doesn't really have any bearing effect on the overarching story as a whole. But it is a nice supplementary piece if you're just into the franchise as a whole, as it does flesh out some of the side characters, namely Kiyomi, who's on the front cover here. Now, if you've read Battle Angel Alita, I won't spoil it, but if you have, Kiyomi is like the baby, like at the start of the series, who later leaves to join the Barjack Rebellion, and it kind of focuses on the last story in the book is really focused on her, like after the main or the first part of the Battle Angel Alita story. So even though it's side stories, it does fit into the actual chronology of the series itself, with the first story featuring Daisuke Ido, the doctor who builds Alita, basically descending from Salem to the scrapyard for the first time and becoming a cyber doctor. So it kind of follows him at first, and then there's a short story with Alita herself halfway through, and then at the end is the story with Kiyomi. So I enjoyed this. I mean, I really enjoy the characters of Battle Angel Alita anyway, and I was pleasantly surprised at how well well developed characters were in such a short space of time. Particularly the Daisuke Ido story, it really fleshes out how he became the cyber doctor that he was, caring and compassionate, from just a very typical Zelemite denizen, and how he actually learned to become compassionate for people who are less than him. It's got lovely artwork, as you would expect, from Yukito Kishiro, the artist behind it, and it's just a really nice short story, or series of short stories rather. What's really interesting as well is that you can really tell that Yukito Kishiro, the mangaka behind it, wanted probably to tell these stories in the main series, but due to his own health reasons, he wasn't able to. Oh, hey, my name is Doofy. Good to see you around, man. Thanks for joining. It really does kind of, the author really does have a really, he's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Mine's completely blank. Transparent. There we go. With the things that he was facing at the time that the original Battle Angel serialization was coming to an end, because he needed to end it prematurely due to serious health concerns. So he really does delve into that, and he does provide some really interesting. There's essentially a whole chronology of exactly what happens, like where the short stories fit in the timeline of Battle Angel Alita itself. Now, obviously, again, bear in mind that it's been a couple of weeks since I've read this, so the fine details of it are escaping me. But I did really enjoy this for what it was. I wish I'd have read it at the time that I just read Battle Angel Alita. I don't know why I decided to separate them. As I'm sure you're aware, I have my TBR jar, and I didn't lump this with the rest of the series. I just kind of had this on like a separate piece of paper that I pulled out at random. So the next time I read Battle Angel Alita, I will just read this alongside it as well, as it is very much as important as the rest of the series, I would say, even though it's not necessary to read to gain an understanding of it. But I would also say that you would need to read the main series in order to understand this, as without it, you without crucial context. So I think my name is Doofy. Yeah, I've just answered that question. So yes, do you need to read the original Battle Angel to read this? I would say so, yes. You don't really understand what the Barjack rebelling is, or who Kiyomi is, without having read the original series. There's also a story with Alita herself fighting an assassin, and in the story itself, she's very dehumanized, and you wouldn't really understand why she is that way if you're just going into this blind. So yes, I would definitely recommend that you read the Battle Angel Alita main series before you read this, as there's a lot of context to it. But yeah, that was what I read at the start of August. One other thing to mention as well, there's some absolutely beautiful colour pages in this. Let me just try and find it real quick, obviously without spoiling anything. Look at this. I mean, it's like something you would see like in Marvel or a DC comic book. It's just gorgeous. I love when you get those nice colour pages in manga, which are so rare a treat. Let's have a look at the comments real quick. Yeah, Bakamatsu, you seem interested in the Jiro Taniguchi that Puffin's got, for sure. Alright, next thing I read. This is a series that I originally went into blind. It wasn't something that really piqued my interest. And I have watched the 4Kids anime. It was just one of those things that was on like when I was a kid. And that was Cardcaptor Sakura. I read the first 2 omnibuses, so this is volume 1. I'm not going to get volume 2, I'm just going to show you volume 1. And truth be told, this was a real slog to read. It's not my cup of tea. It's obviously, I know it's like a classic shoujo. Everybody knows Cardcaptor Sakura, but it just didn't blend well with me. It was very cute. The art style and the artwork overall is absolutely gorgeous, but it was just so slow paced. And essentially what it is, if you've been living under a rock and you don't know what Cardcaptor Sakura is, then it's basically this little girl here, Sakura Kinomoto, opens a book found in her dad's library that has a collection of magical cards, Clow cards. And when she opens the book, all these cards escape, and each card has like some kind of power, and they're manifesting into some kind of elemental being and like cause havoc, like in the city and the little town that she lives in. Basically her mission is to collect the Clow cards and return them back to the book, to avert some kind of mysterious disaster that will befall the town, should she not return all the cards. So it's basically it's a magical girl series essentially. She gains magical powers and can transform like into like a she didn't really transform into anything really. She has like a little staff that she can transform to kind of collect the cards itself. And it's a tried and tested story formula, but Clamp do a relatively good job of making it enjoyable to a degree, but it really is just a kind of monster of the week. Like each chapter is collecting a new card, and then the story doesn't really progress. There are little hints that there's more, there's more going on behind the scenes, like with the guardian of the cards, Cerberus, or Kero, the little I don't know if he's on the cover here, but it's like this little mascot thing. This little dude here. Where is he? Where is he? Oh, there he is. Yeah, that little dude there. And he's always accompanying Sakura, kind of giving her advice and tips and things like that. As to how to collect the cards, because each card that she comes across, like she has to guess the name of the card, what its effects are, how best to counter its attacks, things like that. So it's fun in that regard. And there are some pretty cool, kind of like light shonen and shoujo ai elements to it, that aren't really, delved upon too deeply, which is obviously something that Clamp are very famous for anyway. The like kind of like a dash of, BL and Yuri. So it's kind of nice in that regard. There's some pretty interesting relationship dynamics between Sakura and her friends and her brother and like her main crush, who may or may not have a little bit more to him as well. But I just felt it was really slow. It was for how simple the story is and the goals that she needs to reach. I felt it could really have been condensed down into just these 2 volumes. But considering that there are 2 more volumes after this, and bearing in mind these are 3-in-1 volumes, I just don't really feel the incentive to read anymore. I really feel that what I read of these 2 volumes was enough, and even then it was a little bit of a slog. There's only so much cuteness until it's like, okay, this is just sickly sweet now, and I'm bored. And maybe it's not my demographic, it's not my age range, so of course it's not. I'm not the target audience for this. This is targeted towards young girls, like 12-year-old girls. So I guess it's just, and that isn't to say that an old man like me can't enjoy something that's targeted towards 12-year-old girls. I've got eclectic enough taste that that cutesy series do appeal to me. Yotsuba as an example, even though that's a seinen. I don't think I'll be reading any more Cardcaptor Sakura. And considering that these Dark Horse editions are out of print anyway, I'm not going to be able to get the volume 3 and 4 that I need to complete the series. And I was considering maybe upgrading to the Kodansha special edition hardbacks, but I don't feel it's worth it. I'm not invested enough into the series to warrant taking that risk. So Yeah, that's volume 1 and volume 2 of Cardcaptor Sakura. Cute, fun, but there are actually some problematic elements in it as well that really turned me off. One of Sakura's friends, like one of her school, like her classmates, is in a relationship with one of the teachers. And it's a mutual relationship from what he led to believe, like the little hints that you get there, which I found was very, very problematic, considering that these are, primary or elementary school children. They're like 10, and the teacher's flirting with a 10-year-old girl. I just didn't like it. Didn't like that at all. I thought that was very problematic, and made me feel dirty reading it. Because it was kind of played for laughs, but I just didn't enjoy it at all. I don't find that kind of stuff entertaining. So that's another reason why I'll probably never be finishing this series. But that was that. Let's have a look at the chat real quick before I move on. Absolutely love the movie of that. I'll have to read the manga. I've heard of Domu by the mangaka of Akira. Yep. Yeah, if so, what are your thoughts on it? Domu is one of those things that's been out of print for years. I've heard like a synopsis of it. Like apparently it's about like psychic people in like an apartment complex or something like that. I will pray for a re-release one day, because I know Katsuhiro Otomo is kind of undertaking a massive project to revamp all of his old series so they can be re-released, as there is a plan to re-release a lot of Otomo's side works and series that he worked on over his illustrious career. So I would hope that would filter over to the West as well, and I would think that Katsuhiro Otomo is a big enough name, to make sales. Akira is one of Kodansha's biggest selling releases, just through the popularity of the anime and Otomo's name. So I would hope that eventually Domu does get a re-release, but I'm not holding out on it, and it's not a massive priority for me. But it does look really cool. And anytime I'm seeing like somebody's collection video and I see a copy of Domu in the collection, obviously I get those green pangs of jealousy, because it is a very nice book. So, and it's only 2 volumes, and I think Dark Horse released it in a single omnibus like years ago. So it's one of those things that's very unattainable, unless it comes upon a really good deal on eBay or something like that. But that's just potluck, really. But yeah, I am interested in Domu, and if it ever comes if it ever comes my way, then I'll consider myself lucky. Cardcaptor, is that more of a children's story, or are there more adult themes there? It's 90%, 95% just a kid's story, but Clamp have written adult works, and some of those adult themes do filter into the story as well, as the aforementioned kind of dynamic between one of the school pupils and the teacher. There's heavy romance elements as well. Well, I'd say heavy romance, light romance elements. Sakura's got like a crush on her older brother's best friend, things like that. But that's very typical of the genre, romance. The only adult theme I would say is the problematic element between the problematic relationship between the teacher and one of Sakura's friends. But that isn't a main focus at all. It just kind of pops up randomly every now and then, and it's like, ooh, pedo, don't like it. Bakamatsu, now that you've mentioned that you probably will never finish the manga, I want to ask you to buy a lot of manga without knowing what it is about. I want to ask if you buy a lot of manga without knowing what it's about. Most of the time I do, yeah. But most of that time it's just based on the publisher or the artist that I may already be familiar with, and I already have that kind of sense of trust that it will be something that I enjoy. A lot of my Gekiga titles are blind buys just for the fact that they're Gekiga. Same with any fanfare or Ponent Mon releases, or Fantagraphic book releases. They're series that I know have been curated and tailor released because they have some kind of historical or some kind of historical or important significance. So I always trust that those releases will be enjoyable to a degree. It's not like Tokyo Pop back in like the early noughties where they were just publishing shit and just throwing anything out there and hoping that official catch. A lot of manga nowadays are very tailored to the market. So anytime I do buy a manga just based on the cover or the title or the title, 9 out of 10 times I will enjoy it. In fact, one of the things that I'm going to be discussing today is a complete blind buy, and it's something that I enjoyed. But the next thing I read was just a single volume of something that I have. I would love to be able to collect the rest of it, as I do love the adaptation from this, but I'm not holding out on a reprint. I've seen some more new comments. Mr. Anime Tales, thank you for joining. Good to see you around. Thanks for joining. My name is Doofy. I'm not gonna lie, I blind buy like crazy. That's good though. I used to do the same. That's how I got the majority of my collection. It's a really good way to buy, especially if you're early into collecting or you've only been collecting for a couple of years. It's been adventurous. I don't think it's about taking those risks. Sometimes it does pay off because you do find some really, really good gems that you would never think to pick up anyway. And if you're new to collecting and you're very picky with what you buy without knowing what's out there, then you'll kind of always stay in the margin. Anime Tale, sorry, I missed your question. Where do you usually get your manga from? Online mostly. I mean, in the last year especially, because obviously the pandemic and everything like that. Physically, I go to there's 3 comic book stores in my city, Traveling Man, OK Comics, and Forbidden Planet. So there were the most popular hotspots for where I bought my manga, especially with the deals, because some of them do like 3 for 2. Forbidden Planet do 3 for 2 on all manga. Traveling Man do 3 for 2 on all Viz titles, and OK Comics don't do any deals, but they are the better when it comes to getting like orders, for like rarer titles, or they're more of like an independent comic book shop. They do sell manga, but it's most of it's like the fanfare stuff or the Fantagraphic stuff. They do sell obviously some of the more popular titles like the My Hero Academia and stuff like that, but a lot of it's like kind of like art books and just more kind of off the beaten track releases. Anyway, before I move to any more of the comics, I'll talk about what I was talking about. So the next manga I read is just volume 1 of Old Boy by what's this dude's name, Garon Tsuchiya and Nobuaki Minegishi. I love the Old Boy film, the Korean film. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and that is based on this. The first volume is essentially just set up. Obviously, you've got the main guy here. If you're familiar with Old Boy, then it very much follows the same trajectory as the film, at least the start of it. And it's basically it's a suspense sort of mystery where the main guy has been locked away presumably by like organized crime gangsters. He's been locked away in a room for how long is it? I think 15 years, or no, it's 10 years. I think in the film it was 15 years, but in the manga it's 10 years. Confined in a private prison, just with a TV, and he gets his meals delivered to him. The caveat and the caveat to that being, he doesn't understand why. Like, he's never told why he's been imprisoned. He can't think of any enemies or anything like that he has on the outside. He to all intents and purposes, from the first volume, you're led to believe that he's not actually involved in any organized crime, or he wasn't prior to being locked up. And he just gets released one day. They gas him, put him to sleep, put him in in the back of a truck or something, and just leave him in the park. and that's it. And put some money in his pocket and just leave him. And it's basically him trying to figure out exactly what's happened to him, why it's happened to him, and how he's going to find answers. And soon enough, he comes across a girl, and she seems to. It seems as though she knows more than what she lets on, and that's really kind of how the first volume wraps up. It's him, finding out kind of little subtle clues here and there, as to where to find answers. He comes across. Well, let me start from the beginning. So the food that he gets delivered to him, he gets like Chinese takeaways delivered to him like every day, and it's a very specific dish that he eats, and apparently it's only cooked at like 3 restaurants in the city where he's being kept. So when he gets released, he's got an idea as to which takeaways that these that his meals were, that where his meals came from. So I'm stumbling on my words a lot today. So that's kind of like his initial clue as to where to find answers, and I would love to know where it goes from there. I don't know if it follows the movie or if the movie follows this faithfully, but I believe it's only about 8 volumes, I think. 8 volumes, 9 volumes or something. So I would love to be able to read the rest of it at some point. And the first volume gave me enough of an itch to want to continue reading it. So it's a shame that it's out of print. It's just one of those things. Yeah. Let's have a quick look at the chat. So one thing, I haven't had a coffee today, so my head is a little bit all over the place. It's just warming in my carafe. It's actually ready to drink now, so I'll probably go get one in a second. Bakamatsu. It's just because there's so many manga out there that it's impossible to get everything, I guess. So searching a bit about it before buying sounds like a good way to prioritize. Absolutely. If you really don't like it, do you guys sell it? I've only recently begun selling manga, unhauling, I think is what they call it in the community. In fact, it was last year that I sold all of my Berserk and my Blade of the Immortal and my Attack on Titan collections. The former two being to upgrade to the deluxe editions, but that kind of spurred me on to actually, let me just kind of have a bit of a purge of my collection and get rid of things that I know I'm just never gonna either reread or never gonna finish. So last year there was actually a lot. I downsized my collection by maybe about a quarter of my entire collection. I got rid of. Many of those were just kind of like blind buys or things that I just didn't have any interest in anymore. Because I originally had about 1,500 volumes, and I went down to maybe about, I don't know, maybe about 1,000. I don't know, I never did a count, but it was enough. I filled about 3 boxes full of manga that I ended up getting rid of, just selling. And I'm still continuing to do that. Just on a smaller scale, as my collection now is a lot more curated, carefully picked. Anything that I reread, if I don't enjoy it, then I will consider getting rid of it. No matter how infamous or well sought after it is. I think that there's no point keeping something that is just going to stagnate in my collection if somebody else can get more enjoyment out of it. Which is why I think unhauling is a healthy thing to do. and its profit as well. You can get some, like, manga now is a pretty valued commodity. You can make a pretty penny off of some out of print titles that you own. So you just bang them up on an eBay auction, and you can make a 300-400% profit, more even. So yeah, I've made some pretty good profits on some of the things I've sold. Not boasting or anything. It's just simply it's demand for out of print titles. Somebody, thank you for joining. I found my favourite manga, Summit of the Gods, by blind buying. Ended up reading all of Taniguchi's manga because of that. Awesome. Really awesome. I'm still to read Summit of the Gods. I do have it on my shelf. I read 2 Taniguchi titles last month, those being The Quest for the Missing Girl and A Distant Neighborhood. I really enjoyed both of them. And The Summit of the Gods, I think, is... I've got all 5 of the volumes. I think it's the longest series by him that I have. So I'm really looking forward to reading that, especially because it's like about mountain climbing and stuff like that. I'm really interested in that. So, and if you say it's your favourite series, that's good. That's awesome. My name is Doofy, or I'll just call it Doofy. I usually don't sell, but I have before. At some point, I'm at the point where I just love collecting, whether I love it or not. Yeah, I was very much the same. It's a fun place to be, because it's all, everything's all kind of new, and I know, Doofy, you've read a lot anyway, but there's still so much more for you to read. So I think it will remain exciting for you. For many years to come. It's still exciting for me, collecting. I love collecting, but I like collecting more, series that I am confident I will like. So even though I do like blind buying, I am a little bit more selective with it. It's a bit of a juggling act for me. Mr. Anime Tales, or Forbidden Planet in my city, have there's something selection, sadly, so I usually just have to Amazon it. I went to Forbidden Planet, or the Forbidden Planet, over in Sheffield, and it just had the worst manga selection ever. It was about 2 shelves or something. The Waterstones had a better selection of manga, and that's like a general bookstore. The Forbidden Planet in Sheffield, I don't know if you've been to that one. It's just terrible. I would say that the comic book shops in the bigger cities, like obviously London and Leeds, have really good selections. 1,500, I think that's in response to how many volumes. No, I didn't get rid of 1,500 volumes. I started selling some volumes when I was at 1,500, and I cut down to about, I think I got rid of maybe about 300-400 volumes. So now I think I'm at about 1,200 now, because obviously I've bought more. Let's move on. So the next thing I'm going to talk about was a blind buy. My first foray into the monster girl subgenre of romance and ecchi, and this is quite ecchi, but it wasn't as ecchi as I've seen other things, and that was Oh My Sweet Alien by Koji Miyata. Now, this was very much a cover buy. I absolutely love the cover for this, and I just love how I love the cute design of the alien wife on the back. It just looked like such a wholesome and happy read, and it very much was. And it basically is about this alien girl who falls in love with this kind of salaryman guy, and it's pretty funny. It's a pretty funny setup. Because he gets abducted by like an alien spaceship, and like she's supposed to put like a probe in him, but she's all like kind of like, no, it's inhumane, we can't do that, just to monitor them. And like he's kind of like half awake, and he looks at it, it's like, oh my god, you're absolutely beautiful, will you marry me? And then she starts blushing, and then the next thing she's living on Earth, and they're having a little kid. So it's just this really sweet like romantic tale of them living together in like metropolitan Tokyo. And obviously the comedy surrounds the fact that she's an alien, and as you can see from the cover, she has like a human disguise. The only ones that know about her being an actual alien are like his parents. But his mum is still very much like the stereotypical mother-in-law, like, you know, you need to be a good wife and you need to learn how to cook and blah 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 blah, like really hard ass, and like she's really kind of shy around her and stuff. So it's funny. It's really really funny. And it basically is just a series of short stories. There is kind of like an overarching plot, but it's very loose, and it very much is just centered around the gags and the kind of funny hijinks that you know, that they get up to, especially with the little kid, because obviously the kid is like half alien, so obviously he doesn't, or she rather, it's a little girl, you know, like she doesn't understand, obviously she's that she has to hide, like you know, the tendrils on her head and stuff like that, and you know, not supposed to use the psychic powers in public and things like that. It's very cute. Let me show you some of the artwork, because the artwork inside is really good as well. Obviously nothing too ecchi. In fact, I will show you some of the ecchi stuff, but it's not explicit. So that's kind of, you know, it does get quite saucy, and you know, you get introduced to other aliens as well, that, you know, have other motivations like on Earth. But it's really cute. Obviously, the romance aspect of it and like the dynamic between the alien wife and the husband is really sweet. Oh, my phone's gone. Sorry, 1 second. Hello, I'm back. So I was using Irion webcam. I'm having to use my integrated webcam in my laptop now, which I don't like using because the as you can see, it's a different angle. Like the webcam isn't at the top of the screen; it's at the bottom of the screen, so you get this really horrible like upshot of my face. Which is why I prefer to use Irion, because then I can just move the camera around anywhere I want. But I'm gonna have to get a webcam or something. But I was talking about Oh My Sweet Alien. I can't remember where I left off with, but it is a very fun, wholesome read. One fact to note, which is quite sad actually, is that the author passed away really young. I think the author was only in like the mid-30s, and like they died of I can't remember if it was like a brain hemorrhage or it was something to do with like some kind of brain injury or something, which is really, really sad. And it may, you can tell like at the start the artwork is very, very detailed, and there is a noticeable shift in the quality of the artwork towards like the end. It becomes a little bit more, not necessarily less detailed, but just simpler. So I really don't know if that was to do with the fact that the author was becoming ill, or there was, I don't really know anything more than what I read on online. But really sad that the author passed away, and I think this is their only published work in English. So if there's anything else that they ever worked on, I certainly would read it. As this was very fun, and considering it was my first foray into the monster girl genre, and it's a very light introduction, I would say, as it's not very, very sexual. It's more focused on the relationship dynamics between the wife and the husband, who aren't named. In fact, like the wife doesn't actually have a name. She's just known as the alien wife, which is why it's not like I've forgotten the names or anything. But yeah, there's none of that like teasing of flirtatious banter or sexual tension or anything like that, because they're already married, so they're already very comfortable with each other. So yeah. Thanks for your patience with that, guys. I honestly don't know what happened to my camera. It just won't connect at all, so I'm having to use my integrated webcam. Cool. All right. Next thing, something very dark. Doofy, I think you'll be very happy that I've read this, and that was Downfall by Inio Asano. It's just a single volume, maybe not semi-autobiographical piece. About a mangaka who has become absolutely drained with the industry, and it's a bit of a toss-up between whether or not he's simply burnt out with the industry, or whether or not he's just a really terrible human being who is manipulating his readers' love of his previous series for just for sales. And it really is this introspective look at this introspective look at what it means to be a mangaka at the top of his game. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's trying to meet deadlines. It's trying to make sure your assistants have regular work. And basically his downfall comes at the point where his really popular series has just ended its serialization, and he's struggling with writer's block, trying to think of a new project that is equally as popular and critically acclaimed as his last series. And there's a lot riding on his shoulders, but at the same time he's treating everyone around him like absolute pieces of human filth. So it's just this self-destructive look at a man who is completely disassociated with any form of human emotion. He treats his wife like absolute dirt, He regularly seeks solace in like local prostitutes, but it seems to be less about sexual gratification and more about wanting to be around women who just say yes to him. He really is a piece of crap, and it's a difficult read. I mean, there's a particularly triggering part of the story where he attempts to rape someone. He attempts to rape his wife, and it was absolutely horrible. It just gave me this horrible pit in my stomach. His sense of entitlement to her and his own wants and needs over everyone else around him. He really is just this black hole of human folly, if you want to call it that. And yeah, he ends up meeting this girl on the cover there. I can't really get a good angle at it, but it's the girl here, as you can kind of see. Let me just try and find a picture of her, actually. Yeah, the cute pixie looking girl there. And at the very start, he's got a thing about cat-eyed girls. Like his first girlfriend, who you see at the very start of the manga, basically confronts him on his really toxic behavior and his toxic outlook on life, and really strips him bare. And that's the last you really see of her until the end. So he's always had this thing about cat-eyed girls. I guess he feels kind of transparent around them, or like they can kind of see him for who he really is. So he's very wary about girls like that. But at the same time, he's just, maybe he just finds them irresistible, which he very much does with this cat-eyed girl, this young prostitute who he meets, who very much is kind of like his yin to his yang. She's very carefree and able to really speak her mind without she's very confident and just everything that he's not. So I guess he feels sort of vulnerable around her, and he doesn't like that. He doesn't like being in that position, as maybe he feels like he wants to be in the position of power, and obviously he's losing the grip of his life. And she really is his last tether to any sort of control that he might have, and he's slowly losing that too. So he's really reaching rock bottom, and you really get to see the worst of maybe what goes on behind the scenes at publishing companies, and the politics of rivalries between mangaka and things like that. It's very toxic. There's not really any redeeming characters in this at all. All of them kind of have their own motivations and agendas, and it's not the kind of thing you read to enjoy. It's the kind of thing you read just to be like, oh, this is a slice of reality. This isn't like a slice of life, like in the wholesome kind of sense, like slice of life in the dirty nitty gritty of depression and horrible circumstances, financial worries, things like that. It's a difficult read considering how short it was, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. For what it was. One thing does worry me that it is maybe there's nuggets of truth in there, with Asano's own personal experience with in the industry. He's obviously known for things like Pun Pun, which is his stab at creating something that is as dark as possible. So he does have a real penchant for creating these really dark stories, and I've seen him in interviews, and I think he's been quite expressly open with his own issues with mental health issues. So there seems to be a lot of personal emotion in this for Asano, and it's so realistic and relatable to a degree, just on a human level, that I think it couldn't be created by anyone other than someone who has experienced some of the events that happen in this, and I think you would need to have a real first-hand grasp of what it's like to have a mental illness and live with such an illness, to be able to portray it in such a visceral way. So Downfall is it's not a light read. It's not something for the faint of heart. But if you read anything by Asano, then it's not going to be a walk in the park. Yeah, Downfall. Wow. What a difficult read. And what an absolutely detestable protagonist. Utterly detestable. And they always say never meet your idols because you'll always hate them. Which is why I never go to things like book signings or anything like that. There's actually an instance where the main character goes to a book signing and he's just a piece of shit to everyone. He just talks to people like crap, and obviously everyone around him, everyone's like just obviously he's got a critically acclaimed series where he's just surrounded by sycophants. People will just bend to his whim, and I guess he feels like he could just talk to people like absolute pieces of human filth. And that kind of dichotomy between a really horrible author being able to create something really wholesome and thought-provoking and really invoke a really beautiful reaction in people is just it's maddening. So it just makes you think that all those lovely wholesome series that you've read, you never know what the artists behind them are really like, because they're just they're human just like the rest of us. Everyone, no matter how beautiful someone sees through the filter of their artwork, we all eat, breathe, and shit. So this is a very good look at that. Whew. Oh God. To be honest, these are the best things for me to talk about, because I do feel a real sort of connection with them, for better or worse, and my mind just kind of goes into overdrive when I'm talking about something like this. So this is probably the best thing I read for last month. Yeah, let me just have a quick read of the comments, and then I'm gonna go pour my coffee, which is probably cooling down now. Bakamatsu, I just bought Downfall yesterday morning. Oh, nice. Well, as with all of these kind of discussions, I don't aim to spoil anything, so I really hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Along with some other titles. Sweet. Doofy, Downfall is excellent. I was a big fan, but then again, I'm a big fan of everything Asano does. Yeah, I think I am too. I haven't read anything by him so far that I've not enjoyed. Solanin, first thing I ever read by him, excellent. In fact, no, that was the second thing. I read What a Wonderful World by him, which I probably wouldn't enjoy as much as I've enjoyed, other things by him that I've read. I mean, his art style from back then, it's one of his earliest works, or his earlier works at least. His art style isn't as refined as it is in other series, but obviously, that was my introduction to him, so, at that point I didn't know any better. But I do remember really enjoying What a Wonderful World. I mean, it's been about 6 or 7 years now since I've read that. Pun is pun. Solanin, great. I read, I think, maybe one volume of Dead Demons, which I really enjoyed, and Downfall. So, yeah, it's been a clean streak so far. Govoth, or I'm really sorry with your name, buddy. I'm terrible at pronouncing your name. Hey, just logged in. What did I miss? So I'll just do a little bit of a recap, because I'm pretty much halfway through of what I've read. So far I've talked about Battle Angel Alita, Holy Knights, and Other Stories, which is just a short story collection, stories on featuring some of the side characters like Kiyomi, you're on the cover. I read volume 1 and 2 of Cardcaptor Sakura, the omnibus edition, so I guess you could call that 6 volumes. That's half of the series. Volume 1 of Old Boy. Oh My Sweet Alien, which is beautiful romance. And obviously I've just been talking about Downfall. I've got 3 more things to talk about. I'm gonna have a quick read of the comments, and then I'll go away for 2 minutes while I just pour my coffee. Doofy, I'd be scared to meet Asano, to be honest. Yeah, you know, there's only been one occasion where I've met like you know, like one of my idols, and you know, I enjoyed the experience of meeting them. But generally, I would be scared of meeting somebody that I idolize, or not scared, but more wary, you know, because you know, you need to separate the artist from their work. You know, prime example of somebody who's a detestable piece of shit would be, you know, somebody like what's the guy's name who did Rurouni Kenshin. I mean, I've never read Rurouni Kenshin, so I can't really attest to how good the series is, but I know it's a critically acclaimed, well-loved series, and I would think that if I had read that and I was a fan of it, which, you know, it is something that definitely appealed to me, if I'd have read that and then found out that obviously, you know, Nobuhiro Watsuki, I think his name is, did what he did, I'd feel crushed. You know, considering how much of a cultural impact his series has had. So I'd be very wary of meeting idols as well. Puffy Muffin just got back now. Cool. Hope you had a good break. Doofy, but to be fair, he did also write Dead Demons and Solonin, which are considerably more light-hearted than Pun Pun or Downfall. Absolutely. I mean, Solonin does have its moments, you know, sad moments. You know, I won't spoil for anybody else who's watching who may not have read it, but it's definitely a lot more light-hearted for sure. And Dead Demons is arguably, I mean, I'm just kind of talking about on its surface value, and obviously the volume 1 that I've read, but it's very light-hearted from what it looks like. A younger cast. In fact, I've also got to read A Girl on the Shore. That I thought I'd read everything by Asano that had been released in English, but now I've still got A Girl on the Shore to read, and that's arguably his darkest title, maybe. But yeah, Dead Demons looks very light-hearted. Puffy Muffin got a series called Wandering Sun that seems interesting. It deals with trans issues in Japan, so might not be everyone's cup of tea. Yeah, it's funny you should mention that. I had volume 1 of that for years. I've just recently sold it to a guy over in the Netherlands. Looks absolutely beautiful, and the only reason I sold it is because Fantagraphics didn't print the full series, as it just sold too poorly. I mean, at one point the later volumes that they were selling had to be kickstarted, so it was a very limited print run of them anyway. It just didn't. And you know something, if it was released in a cheaper format, I mean, considering as well Wandering Sun is a premium hardbound edition, you know, that they were going for like $20 a piece, you know. The Fantagraphics didn't make the release accessible enough for a common audience. You know, you really had to kind of, you know, put your money where your mouth was in terms of wrong phrase. You know, you really have to fork up the money. You know, if you wanted to experience the series, which, you know, just didn't make it very accessible. So I think that was one of the reasons for its failure. But otherwise, I've heard it's a very good series, and I know the author does have another series published in English by another publisher, but the name of it escapes me. But yeah, Wandering Sun does. I mean, the artwork, the art style alone looked really charming. So I hope you enjoy it. Welcome, Diego. Thank you for joining. And Onyx, thank you. And Noel, thank you also for joining. Noel Rodriguez. A couple of people joining now. Thank you very much. Kavoth, thank you so much for the recap. By the way, you always pronounce my nickname just right every time. All right, sweet. Cool. Kavoth is the name of the protagonist of the King Killer Chronicles book series. All right, sweet. So it's not your name then, because I really hate mispronouncing people's like actual names. I just find it really, you know, I don't want to disrespect anyone. So cool, that's fine. Diego, you should read Nijigahara Holograph. It's in my top 3 Asano works. Downfall and Pun Pun are the other 2. I have read Nijigahara Holograph. I can't remember if I did a review on it though. I do remember talking about it in a video years ago, but I have read it. I mean, once I've read all of my Asano books, I'll probably do an Asano specific video kind of going over his his library of books that have been released by him in the West. So Onyx, hello, new to your channel. What's your taste in manga? I will answer that, but for now, I'm just going to go make a coffee, and I will be back in about two or 3 minutes. All right. Cool, I'm back. Short one. It's already warmed in my carafe. Okay. So Onyx. My taste in manga. Eclectic, I would say. It would probably be more easier for me to say what my tastes in manga aren't. Rather genre gaps in my collection that I've been neglecting to fill. For instance, I have a very limited amount of sports manga in my collection, and romance in my collection as well. Demographically, I would say the majority of my collection is shonen and seinen, with a little bit of josei in there as well. But 90% seinen and shonen. And then I guess the differentiation between, or the ratio between seinen and shonen maybe would be 60-40. But the majority of the series are, I would say, if I would, some of my favourite genres would be like horror, slice of life, suspense, thrillers, things like that. And I do have a penchant for Gekiga, an independent manga as well. I mean, that entire shelf there is all Gekiga. The shelf below is all Osamu Tezuka. Behind my head here is some Shigeru Mizuki manga. The above shelf, obviously, you got Vagabond at the top there. Crying Freeman over here. And then the shelf below that is just kind of like some like vertical and dark horse titles. Junji Ito over here. Inio Asano. So yeah, I mean, I've got a shelf over there as well, and a shelf in the other room, and another shelf in my bedroom. So yeah, I've got a bit of a eclectic taste. You know, I like to read a bit of everything, and I keep my you know, I keep an open mind about things. You know, before I try them. I mean, I was just talking about Cardcaptor Sakura, which is, you know, leagues away from anything that I would ever choose to read on my own, and it was something that I got recommended to me a couple of years back, so decided to try it out. Noel Rodriguez, just want to say I love your content. My go-to challenge for manga recommendations. I guess maybe mean channel, but thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm very appreciative. Very flattered by your comments. Thank you very much. Diego, Dead Demons is more light-hearted until you stop and think about all the events that are occurring in the background. Yeah, I mean, the first volume left me with like an impression of strangely enough, it reminded me of that film. Was it District 12 or District 11? That was kind of like an allegory for apartheid Africa, and because obviously the aliens in that are treated like second-class citizens, and obviously it's set in Johannesburg. I don't know if like Dead Demons kind of goes down that route, because obviously it's about like that whole a massive spaceship that can't leave or something. I don't know if like the aliens become more of a central piece in the story, or whether it just kind of still centers around like those schoolgirls or whatever. But yeah, you just that whole with the big spaceship in the sky above the city reminded me of can't remember, District 11 or whatever it is. It's about, I think it's about 10 years old now, that film. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if it gets any darker. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Even something as light-hearted as Dead Demons is it's still written by Inio Asano. So, and I can imagine some of his darker themes would filter through. Doofy, it's not a children's story, especially in light of these latest chapters. But compared to Pun and Downfall, it's certainly more of a light-hearted side of things. That would make sense. I believe it's finishing soon as well. I think Asano's on a brief hiatus, deservedly. I always take a break. And I think once he gets back, he's going to be wrapping things up with Dead Demons. But his series are usually quite short anyway. I mean, I don't think he's got anything that's really gone over like 15 or 16 volumes, has he? So, Puffin, I must have missed it. Had you read Domu? No. What I was saying, I mean, I think you must have been working at the point, but no, I haven't read Domu. And it's one of those things that's very, unattainable in terms of getting a physical copy. But I would hope to read it one day, because I know Katsuhiro Otomo is doing a revamp of all of his older works for re-release. I guess maybe just re-editing them or redrafting them or whatever. I don't know. I mean, this is a long project for him, I believe. So. This is obviously Japan side, so things that would be re-released over in Japan, and hopefully they would filter over here as well. I mean, as I was saying before, Katsuhiro Otomo is a big enough name that I hope Kodansha and Dark Horse and whoever else would maybe have the rights to publish his work would take note. And I mean, I know Kodansha are going to be releasing that big art book of his, like the big wall thing. And they wouldn't. I don't think they would do that if Katsuhiro Otomo wasn't already such a big name and an easy sell. His manga sells really well. I think Akira's one of Kodansha's best-selling manga, and it was for Dark Horse as well. It was a golden series for them, and it's been in print for decades. I don't think it's once ever been out of print. So I would hope that some of Otomo's other series, I think most of his other series are just short stories. I think Akira was the longest thing he ever wrote, and after that, he was like, I'm done with manga. So, yeah, hopefully, Doma does get a re-release, and I would like to read it for certain. Okay, one more sip of my coffee, and then I'll talk about what I read next. Next thing I read was it's quite a new release, or for me at least, anyway. And it's something from an author that I absolutely love. Is an author who's unanimously loved, but this particular work I wasn't too fond of, and that is Mujirushi by Naoki Urasawa. And it's just a little one-volume, one-shot series, and I would say out of everything that I've read from Urasawa so far, which really in the bigger scheme of things isn't a lot. I mean, we've got Monster, 20th Century Boys, Master Keaton, I do have Sneeze, but I haven't read that yet. I've only read 3 series by him, obviously with this as a 4th. And out of them, I would say that this is my least favourite. I mean, I don't know if it's a victim of, or maybe I should just give it the plot, the premise, the synopsis of what it's actually about before I kind of talk about what I disliked about it. Essentially, it's about this little girl on the front cover here and her dad. Her dad and her mum are both, I guess, failures at, they run a business, a factory that is going into liquidation. And his dad is falling on very desperate times, getting payday loans and things like that, falling into really serious, deep debt when he starts coming across... Oh, yes, Pluto. Sorry, I forgot Pluto as well. I have read Pluto. Little girl's dad is in serious, deep debt, and he's becoming more and more desperate and starts coming across this strange symbol. It's like weird symbol there around, and cryptic messages suggesting, like get rich quick schemes, and they led to this weird guy. What's this guy's name? Iyami, I think his name is. And Iyami, this dude here, is somewhat of he may be or may not be a complete charlatan. We don't really know, but the little girl's dad, he's got nothing. He feels he's got nothing else left to lose, and he puts all his faith in this guy who's suggesting some kind of get rich quick scheme, pertaining to an art heist, and it's all centered around the Louvre art gallery in Paris, in France, and he's being tasked with stealing a particular painting, so they can create a forgery in order to make money off of it. And it's kind of it's centering around like that, and really who Iyami is, and whether or not he can be trusted, whether or not he can follow through on his promises of riches and success. And it's this little girl trying to the little girl really kind of holds the whole narrative together, as she's the only one who's kind of questioning this weird guy and like questioning her father's really terrible decisions. And interspersed with all this is also a bit of political intrigue. There is a character in this who is basically just a parody of Donald Trump, called, what's her name, Beverly something or other. It's basically Beverly Duncan, but she's basically like a female Donald Trump, as you can see there. And I mean, there is some kind of link between her and the goings on with the main characters. Obviously, they don't ever interact or anything like that, but there is a bit of political intrigue in it as well. I didn't really enjoy it. I'm not familiar with the character Iyami, who is basically Urasawa borrowed Iyami from the popular Osamatsu-san franchise over in Japan, but I've never experienced the Osamatsu-san anime or manga, and it's about those quadruplets or quintuplets or something, and Iyami is apparently a character in that, and he's basically the exact same character, just like a charlatan, kind of going around lying and trying to start up get rich quick schemes or something like that. But I'm not familiar with that franchise anyway, so I didn't really understand the kind of quirks and idiosyncrasies of Iyami as a character, or like as a cultural icon, because apparently he's really famous and popular in Japan. So that aspect of the story was lost on me, unfortunately. I also didn't like the Beverly Duncan character. I think using Donald Trump or any kind of any kind of controversial political figure as kind of like a jab or like a plot point in your series, personally I think is kind of weak. It's an easy laugh, and it's an easy target. It's like, oh, okay, another Donald Trump joke. It was the same thing in the Death Note one shot. If you've read that, where Ryuk gives Donald Trump the Death Note, and it's like, oh, of course. I think it's lazy. I think it's really lazy. Which I thought was the same with this. It does have quite a funny ending, and I did enjoy the little girl as a character. She's very sweet and very smart, you know, for her age. But it just didn't. It just didn't engage me like his other works did, and maybe it's a victim of how short it was as well. I guess maybe if he planned it out to be a longer series, then maybe it would have been a lot more interesting. But I believe this is a work that was. It may have been commissioned by the Louvre, in fact, as you know, there's been other manga artists who have had works commissioned by the Louvre, such as Jiro Taniguchi. Who else? Taya Matsumoto did Cats of the Louvre. Hirohiko Araki did Johan of the Louvre. So I think that this is another commissioned piece, and obviously, you know, they have to be quite short. You know, they're not commissioned to do entire, you know, 20-volume series or something like that. They're just commissioned to do a short story. So this may be one of those, as it is very much centered around, you know, the Louvre. So I mean, you can see it on the front cover in the background, that, you know, the pyramid. But Mujirushi, it wasn't something I really enjoyed. As I said, it was average at best for me. So yeah, I'm still looking forward to reading Sneeze, which is like even more of a short story collection. I mean, this is just a single short story, but Sneeze is a collection of short stories, and it's even shorter than this. So I do have high hopes for that still, and I'm still hoping for a Billy Bat release over here in the West at some point, even though it's not. I don't think it's under Shogakukan, so it wouldn't be published by Viz. I think it would need to be published by Kodansha. But you know, one can hope. Pluto. Even though I loved Pluto, it's the one that I remember the least. I always forget Pluto when I'm talking about Naoki Urasawa, and I remember very little of the story. There's only one part of the story that I remember. Obviously I won't spoil it because it's a massive spoiler. But I don't remember. It's the only one that I don't remember the ending. So it's definitely something I need to reread, because I do at the time remember really enjoying the series, and the main character Gesicht. I thought he was super cool, like really cool detective guy. So yeah, I'm always shafting Pluto. Doofy, I've only read Monster and Pluto and a bit of 20th Century Boys. Love them all, but I don't like his short stories. Fair enough. 20th Century Boys is incredible. Doofy, I don't know how much of it specifically you've read. I think you mentioned in your other video that you've only read the first omnibus, I believe. And that's like, what, 2 volumes? So, I mean, it very much, it's a slow burn. I mean, it's quite a long series. It's 24 volumes, so it's a very slow burn, and it doesn't really get into it until maybe the 5th or 6th volume, from what I recall. I mean, it's years since I've read it. I mean, I read 20th Century Boys in 2011, maybe 2010, 2011. So don't take my word for it, but it is a bit of a slow burn, but it is worth it, very much worth it. I remember actually that there's a part in the series where it goes to the it skips forward in time to the future, and I believe the future was 2014, and it's all like really super sci-fi, and like obviously at the time that I read it, it was like, oh wow, yeah, it's, you know, the near future, but 2014 is just, it's almost like the distant past now. So that'll be funny rereading it. It's kind of like how when you read Akira and it's like it's set in the distant future of 2019. The 2020 Olympics are coming up, and it's like, that's just happened. Oh man. So yeah, that's funny. Bakamatsu, Sneeze are short stories, I think. Yes, yeah, they are. I haven't read it yet, but I had a flick through it, and they look like short stories. I like the 2 chapters of Sneeze, but stopped because I didn't feel it. Cool. Trump is in Dead Demons too. Oh. It's just such a cheap shot. Like, just there are other political figures that you can take the piss out of. Like, I mean, I hate Donald Trump just as much as anybody else. I think he's a piece of human filth, but it's just such a played joke. It's like reusing the same meme all over again. It's just tiresome. And I think it's a mixture between, I'm tired of hearing his name and seeing his face, and again, the just, just it's just such a lazy. I think it's lazy writing to keep using Donald Trump as a political punching bag, because it's just like, yeah, we know it's a piece of crap. Like, there are no more jokes to make about it. Just move on. He's already been cancelled off of social media, so just move on. But that's my gripe about using Donald Trump as a punching bag in series. I just wish it'd stop. Yeah, it's an outplayed joke. It is. Diego Naoki Urasawa is very hit or miss for me. Something about the way he delivers information and dialogue feels very off at times, even in the series. Obviously, I like. Yeah, he does have a very peculiar writing style. He drip feeds information to you, and sometimes, something that could be crucially important to the plot is drip fed very subtly. So it's one of them things. It's one of them authors where anything you read by him, you really need to pay attention, because it's easy to miss stuff. It's like, it's like watching a really complex movie. Oh, 1 second. I need to turn on. My battery's low. 1 second. Ugh. There we go. Yeah. Reading Naoki Urasawa is like watching a really deep and complex movie with a really a really intricate plot, where if you blink and miss something, it will ruin the rest of the movie for you, because you're like, oh shit, I need to rewind it. It's Naoki Urasawa's like that. Any piece of information, whether how subtle it is, will be important later on in the series somehow. So it's quite, reading his series sometimes are quite exhausting. For how good they are, I think you really do have to be in the right frame of mind and really open to kind of reading something quite intricate. Otherwise, it's not one of them things that you can just kind of, switch your brain off, or it's not like just, like an action movie or something where you can just, you watch it, just, you don't have to pay attention to it. It's quite draining to read Naoki Urasawa. I find at times. So, I mean, I don't know if that's the reason why it's hit or miss for you, but that's how it can be for me sometimes. Buffin Muffin, what's your thoughts on collecting a mangaka's catalogue of works just to complete a set within a collection? Like, I don't enjoy every work by Tezuka, but I kind of feel compelled to add it anyway. Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I'm very much like that. I think the only Tezuka manga that I don't want to collect is Astro Boy, and that's purely just due to the length. I don't think it would be something that I would enjoy anyway. I'm not really into kind of like little superhero childish stories. And Astro Boy is like, what, 20 odd volumes? I only like Tezuka in small doses. And I only really like his shorter series. I mean, the longest thing I have by him is Dororo. I mean, that's like 4 volumes singly, and that was in an omnibus, and that was very draining to read. In fact, I have Triton of the Sea as well, and I think they're both 2-in-1s, and that was, again, very, very, very draining to read. But I do also feel compelled to buy things that have like historical significance, even if I don't feel like I would like it. Like, for instance, I got the Revolutionary Girl Utena box set that you can see over here, and I really didn't like that. Didn't like it at all. I thought it was terrible. But as for collecting all the works within a single author's catalogue, there are certain series where if I see a particular author's name, it's just an instant buy, even if I'm not familiar with that series itself. One example being, I'm a big fan of A Bride's Story by Kaoru Mori, and I've been meaning for a while now to pick up Emma, which was the series that she wrote before that. But I have no interest in Victorian maids at all, or even the Victorian era. I find it excruciatingly boring. But it's Kaoru Mori, so I feel compelled to buy it because I know I will love her artwork and like her sensibilities with portraying like facial expressions and things like that. So that does feel like a must buy for me. Same with Satomu Nihei. I'm a massive fan of Blam and Biomega, so I feel compelled to buy Opossums, but I don't like the look of the artwork in Opossums, as he's very much changed his art style to look a lot more conventional. I think after doing Knights of Sidonia, which kind of propelled him into the spotlight a little bit, his art style has changed notably from what it was, but I still feel compelled to at least try it at the very least. Now Kurosawa, obviously another prime example of an author that is just a must buy. So I do understand you there, and I'm very much on the same page. If I've been utterly moved by a particular series, by a particular author, then I will always look out for their works. That's why, I mean, outside of the sphere of manga, that's why people like Stephen King, are very, very famous and popular, because they have a very tried and tested, formula that they stick to, and they've got loads of different successful series. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. Diego, I wish Pluto stuck with the first main character. I didn't really like the last part. I don't really remember the last part. Like I said, I don't really remember much of the series. Adding pop culture icons dates the work as well. Absolutely, it does. Yeah, absolutely. It's like if you read a manga or you read a series and it was taking the piss out of Tony Blair or George W. Bush. It's like, yeah, it no longer feels current, and over time, it will lose its timeless appeal if you poke jabs at things that are current at that time. So that's a really good point. We need more Boris Johnson and Doug Ford in manga. I can't stand Boris Johnson. I'm not sure who Doug Ford is, and I'll probably be better off for my ignorance on that. Okay, Doug Ford is the funny Premier of Ontario, Canada. Okay, so politician. Diego, I feel like Naoki sometimes delivers too much info, especially when he introduces new characters and they go through their bio like they're reading off the stat sheets. Feels unnatural. Yeah, I feel that. Spicy Tuna, thank you very much for joining. I just want to let you know that based off of your review of A Distant Neighborhood, I read it and genuinely loved it. Very thought-provoking. Thanks for the tip. You're very welcome. I'm really happy that you went out and experienced it. And thank you for buying it off of the back of me. I'm glad I had an influence. Yeah, awesome. All right. The next thing I talked about, the next thing I'm going to talk about rather, was the only Gekiga manga that I read for this month, and arguably one of my favorite Gekiga I've ever read. Gekiga, for anybody who may be unfamiliar with it, is essentially underground independent manga. Gekiga was a movement started in the 1950s and 60s by a mangaka who wanted to reject the kind of normal conventions of what was being published in magazines at the time, and it was basically just shonen action comics with like no real depth, and Gekiga artists wanted to kind of establish themselves as authors who wanted to portray real life situations, real people, more cinematic experiences within within their sequential art. Just to kind of give you a very, very basic brief overview of what Gekiga is. So Gekiga is very much separate from the conventional manga medium. It's very much its own kind of separate thing. I mean, manga literally translates to whimsical pictures, denoting to its whimsical, kind of fluffy style, generally speaking. Whereas Gekiga literally translates to dramatic pictures, so denoting to its more realistic, darker, more relatable, kind of sensibilities. Doofy, thanks for joining. Thanks. Catch you soon. So anyway, with that said, the Gekiga I read for this last month was The Sky is Blue with a Single Cloud by Kuniko Sirita. Now, these are a curated collection of short stories that she published in the Garo magazine. Garo was one of the premier Gekiga magazines of the time back in the 60s, from the 60s up until recent. I think they're still publishing. I think in fact I think they've only just recently ceased publication in the last couple of years, but these are a curated collection of Sirita's short story manga that were published in Garo between the late 60s and the early 80s. And unfortunately, she was the only regular female contributor to that magazine. There were other female contributors as well, but they were just very one-off, because essentially Garo would accept contributions from anyone. It was an underground comic magazine, so it wanted to, invite up-and-coming talent, that were kind of away from, the conventional norms of what had been published in the more popular magazines. And Kuniko Sirita was one of the only regular female contributors to that magazine, as I said. Another unfortunate reason for that is because the industry at the time, and still currently, is very, very patriarchal. So Sirita had a very, very difficult time getting her stories published, because as a female creator at the time, it was expected that they would write stories just about for girls, targeted at girls, about girls. So basically, shoujo manga, romance stories. That was what most of the female creators at the time were doing, and that's what they were expected to do, to kind of stay in their lane. So Sirita, who's her works were more focused on real life situations. It was Gekiga. It was something that was not expected of her, just because she was a woman. So it's very. I mean, there's a really detailed essay at the back by Ryan Holmberg, who translated this, and he really goes into into the detail surrounding her life at the time that she was trying to get published, because she's unfortunately historically being completely forgotten. She is arguably the first underground female comic book artist in the world, not even just in Japan. She was prolific and generating interest in like the mid to late 60s, when women in comics just weren't really doing that. So essentially, her stories center around like nihilism, debauchery, the political foray of Japan at the time, such as the student movements and anti-imperialism, things like that, and also interspersed with that is her feeling of her place, her feeling of alienation in what was otherwise, quote unquote, a man's world. And her frustration with her constantly getting snubbed by publishers, rejecting her work just because she was a woman and she was expected to, as I said, publish shoujo manga. I mean, there are references to really famous manga artists in this that are otherwise universally loved, that are just embarrassing accounts, and really kind of demonstrates the chauvinistic attitude that men, very well loved artists had at the time behind closed doors. Kuniko Sirita herself worked for a month. I mean, this is detailed in the essay. Sirita herself worked for a month in Mizuki Pro, or what's the production? Basically, she worked as an assistant for Shigeru Mizuki. Shigeru Mizuki, one of the most renowned manga authors of all time, well loved in Japan. Creator of Gegege no Kitaro, father of yokai manga, and his comments towards her at the time. I mean, you read it and it's just embarrassing. It's really, really horrible. What he said about her, as a woman working in her studio, because she just didn't get treated fairly at all. There's also a really horrible, scathing representation of other prolific contemporaries, male contemporaries. For instance, Yoshihiro Tatsumi, who was the father of Gekiga, kind of like how Osamu Tezuka is the father of manga. the godfather of manga. Yoshihiro Tatsumi is the godfather of independent comics in Japan, and there's a really horrible letter that is rumored to have been sent by him, but it was an unsigned letter from his production company, but it was highly likely sent by him, and it was basically when Sirita was still up and coming as an artist, and she'd submitted some work to a manga magazine, and the response that she got back was essentially, I'll just read it to you because it's just it's horrible to read. Let's just try and find it. I mean, it's a very short response from the publishing company, but it really just demonstrates the attitude at the time. See if I can find it somewhere here. I mean, it's quite a long essay, so it might take me a couple of moments. But overall, she had a very tragic life. I can't find the letter that she received from Puffin. Sorry, it's called The Sky is Blue with a Single Cloud, Kuniko Sirita. But basically, the gist of this response that she got from a publisher was, appreciate your submission, but maybe you should stick to something more that's in your favor, and submit a comic about women. Just stick to shoujo. I'm not doing. I'm not portraying very well how sarcastic and condescending the letter was. It was just awful. And this kind of this attitude towards her as a creator who was very progressive for her time and created some absolutely wonderful short stories, and was very much pulling her weight amongst her contemporaries, and really in the big leagues when it came to avant-garde storytelling, was completely snubbed for the fact that she was a woman, and none of these particular issues are addressed in her actual comics herself, because the comics that she was writing about were she didn't allow really her personal experiences with the publishing company to really filter into her comics work, because obviously she was trying to appeal to them as well. So it was just this never-ending battle for her, and unfortunately she ended up dying really young. She died in her 30s. She was diagnosed with lupus, which is a horrible disease that affects your immune system and like your lymph nodes. So her immune system was dying, and she ended up dying. She ended up passing away relatively unknown. Not really many people knew about her, and the actual impact that she had on the comics industry has really gone unnoticed. In comparison to other female authors at the time that were just that were publishing shoujo manga like Moto Hagio and Ryoko Ikeda, other authors of like the Year 24 group. So she had a really tragic life, and was more or less forgotten. She was a very literary mangaka, author, was very well read, and I guess maybe she just was a little bit too far ahead of her time. It was one of those, born in the wrong generation sort of things. But it's sad because you would expect, for how progressive and free thinking you would think the 60s were. The era that she lived in and the culture that she lived in was very stifling, for her as a female artistic creator. So it's a very sad account of who otherwise should be a lot more famous than she actually is. And a lot of her later short stories really deal with her coming to terms with her impending death, because her diagnosis it was a terminal illness, and she was in constant pain. And a lot of the later stories in her manga were written while she was in hospital, on her deathbed. So, there's this real, really kind of visceral feeling of reading an author. You really kind of read it through almost her own eyes. And as an empath myself, it was it's very touching to read something that was someone really kind of using her talents to really kind of almost write like a goodbye letter, so to speak, and her anger towards the world, her circumstances and her impending death are very palpable in the story. I mean, the first short story in the manga is like it's a real punch in the gut. It's basically about a man who he's trying to rid the world of evil by going around killing people. He becomes a serial killer and then ends up going to prison, going to jail, and ends up getting killed himself in jail. And then after he dies, he goes to hell. And then he's like, "Oh, this is brilliant. I'm in hell. There's loads of evil people here. I can continue killing and ridding not only the world, but ridding the afterlife of evil." So that's what he does. He kills everyone in hell. And then Satan comes in and says, "Why have you killed all of my evil souls? I'm sending you back up to earth so you can kill them all again and send them all back here." And then the main character realizes, "Oh my God, I've been trapped in this endless cycle of life and death, constantly killing evil, but just not getting rid of the evil, just moving it from one place to the other. So all of the souls that I killed in hell just ended up back on Earth. So now he has to go back up to Earth and live another life to kill them all again." And it's just like, whoa, that is just deep. Oh, what a horrible situation to be in. So she had a really clear grasp, I would say, on existential, themes of existentialism, and the pitfalls of life that you can fall into. I guess, I don't know. I'm not really doing it justice, but I would highly recommend reading this. The art style, I mean, because this is a curated collection of short stories over the expanse of her entire career. I mean, this is set over like a 20-year period. You really get to see the development of her style. From like simplistic kind of caricatures to things that are a lot more expressive and detailed. I mean, there's a story about her going on a motorbike ride with her partner, and they're just driving into a mushroom cloud, and just there's this beautiful double-page spread of them just kind of riding off into this mushroom cloud. I mean, it's right there on the cover. But that was at the time that she'd just been diagnosed and was aware of her impending death. The last story in this collection as well is beautiful. It's really well written. And considering that this is the only manga of hers that is published in English, or the first time it's been published in English, there are other things that are that she did release as well, but they're more popular in other other languages. I think she's got some of her works published in French and Spanish, maybe Italian as well, where the manga market for kind of more independent, more artistic and literary titles are more popular. So I would hope that in future that this does catch on, and we do get to see more of her work, because she's very she's an unsung hero, if you could call it that. From what I read of the essay, I mean the essay alone provides great context to the short stories as well. And Ryan Holmberg, who wrote the essay, did a fantastic job of helping me as a reader, understand who the author was, and the climate politically and creatively at the time that she was publishing, and the doors that were closed on her. So that the essay alone, just the essay alone is worth picking this up. So that's my thoughts on The Sky's Blue with a Single Cloud. I highly recommend it. A beautiful work, and Drawn and Quarterly, who published it, they didn't scrimp on the quality. It's a very high quality release. So yeah, very poignant work, very poignant. Puffin, you maybe want to give it a read. I'm not as keen on Gekiga as you, but some of them are really interesting for sure. Yeah. I mean, Gekiga can, sometimes you can read Gekiga and it's like, what have I just read? Sometimes it's just too artistic, sometimes it's just purely the design. But sometimes, it's just really realistic stories that are, easy to follow, but just kind of leave you with like a certain kind of feeling. So yeah, Gekiga isn't as inaccessible as what some people may like to think it leads on. There are some really accessible titles that are just genuinely enjoyable reads. So I mean, as a medium, it's experimental, and yeah, there are those more artistic titles that are just like, I just don't know what I've read. I don't really understand, what was going on here. But other titles are just, they're more Gekiga influenced, but there's still there's still a narrative and a plot there to be understood. So yeah, I would say that this is maybe a good starting point. But yeah, last thing I read, something a little bit more light-hearted. Kavoth, I cannot find this manga on my anime list. Maybe it's because this is Gekiga. Yeah, a lot of the new sort of Gekiga titles, sometimes, especially if these are curated in English, but never released in this way in Japan, they won't be on Mal. So, for instance, you won't find like Abandon the Old in Tokyo on my anime list, or something a little bit more familiar. You wouldn't find Shiver or Smashed on my anime list because these are curated English editions which were never published in this way in Japan. So I think my anime list goes on basically how it was published in Japan, and if it's like a short story that's only been released in like an English kind of way, for the English market, then it's not going to be on my anime list. Sometimes as well, especially with the Gekiga titles, I find that you can find them, but they're not yet approved by an administrator. So I tried adding. I think I tried adding. It was this Bloody Stump Samurai, which is it was released in like this in Japan, just a single volume, but it's not yet approved on my anime list for whatever reason. I don't know why, but you can find it on there. So that's maybe the reason. And I think sometimes as well, these are just like The Sky's Blue with a Single Cloud. That's just the English title. So sometimes you won't be able to find it with this specific title, as it's known as something else on my anime list. And sometimes sometimes the translations aren't a direct translation of what the Japanese title were, because it's catered to an English audience. So the title will translate as something completely different, which is why it's sometimes hard to find things on my anime list that aren't as well known. Arc, do you still watch seasonal anime, or are you just all manga now? All manga. I mean, I do have anime. Some of my old DVD and Blu-ray box sets that are still unwatched and I need to watch. But seasonal anime, I can't do it. I can't keep up, and I have more of an interest in manga anyway. I've always been more interested in manga because I like the art form. Like, I like being able to kind of look at the pages and stuff like that. I'm a reader more than a watcher. So yeah, I don't watch seasonal anime, but I've only got time for very few things, and seasonal anime is a very big commitment, considering how much of it is being released. I mean, I think since there's been more anime released in the last 10 years than has been released from 1940 all the way up until the 2000s. So that just goes to show how much the industry, the anime industry, is inflating. There's so much of it being created. I just wouldn't know where to start. So no, I don't watch seasonal anime anymore. I'm sure there are some gems, and a couple of things I've seen getting released that have really piqued my interest. I remember watched a couple of episodes of Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken or Eizoken. I don't know how you pronounce it. Just because it had that really funky intro, and I thought it was really catchy. So I was like, I'm gonna just try a couple of episodes. But it's just one of those things I dropped off of. Bakamatsu. I think I have never read anything Gekiga, but I've bought yesterday Abandon the Old in Tokyo. Oh, nice. Yeah. Abandon the Old in Tokyo. It's a triptych. So there's 3 volumes that kind of you've got. Goodbye. Abandon the Old in Tokyo and the Pushman and the other stories, and they're all published works around the same time. So if you enjoy Abandon the Old in Tokyo, then definitely check out those other 2 as well, because they're all kind of they're all related to each other in some way or another. Diego Mali's really slacking when it comes to listing older works. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know why that is. Whether or not they're just not that much of a priority because not many people are reading them anyway, or whether they're just there's an oversubscription of other newer things that are being conscribed and needing to be uploaded onto Mal that are just getting more priority. I don't know how it works. You're very welcome, Kavoth. I'm glad you found that informative. Bakamatsu, which one was that one you just showed? Red letters, title, that it wasn't on Mal or something. Oh, Bloody Stump Samurai by Hiroshi Hirata. Fun fact, this author was the graphic designer. He was the guy who designed the Akira logo. So that kind of like paint scroll font for like those big red letters in the Akira movie. This guy designed it. So interesting fact. Diego, Bloody Stump Samurai. Seemed like a samurai title, so I must get yeah. I mean, the artwork looks absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I haven't read it yet myself, but it looks very Goseki Kojima-esque. Lovely kind of blue ink sort of ink wash style. Very quintessentially Gekiga. So right. Let's move on to the last thing that I read, and that was Volume 1 or Volume 1 and 2 of Ranma 1/2 by Rumiko Takahashi. This is a series I kind of picked up on a whim, as I've always known about Ranma 1/2, and obviously I know of Rumiko Takahashi. She's got a lot of works published in English, like Urusei Yatsura and Inuyasha. What else has she got? She's got Maison Ikoku, just loads of stuff. Rine, so she's one of those authors that is very well loved in English. And Ranma 1/2, I remember the first time I ever came across Ranma 1/2 was an advert in the back of. Do you remember those? When in the early 2000s, I don't know if anybody's been collecting that long, but in the early 2000s, Viz was publishing manga in just like floppy comic editions, like kind of similar to like the Marvel comics that were like maybe about 30 or 40 pages, just like a Spider-Man comic, just obviously to appeal to the American market. And I had a couple of Dragon Ball Z issues, and Ranma 1/2 was advertised in the back, because I think Ranma 1/2 was also originally released in that format. So it's something I've always been aware of, and I remember reading a couple of chapters of it when I was maybe about 14 or 15, and I liked the premise of it. And it's basically about this person, Ranma, on the cover here in the yellow gi, and his dad, who's the panda, and they're training in China, and they accidentally fall into a cursed spring, and basically Ranma, who is originally a boy, He was born a boy. Anytime he gets splashed with cold water, whether that be rainwater or anything like that, he turns into a girl, and his dad turns into a panda. And you need to splash him with warm water to turn him back. So it's basically like a gender-bending martial arts comedy with romantic elements, because Ranma comes back to Japan with his dad. Ranma comes back to Japan with his dad because he's been is going to be there's an arranged marriage. He's going to be married to one of the daughters of Ranma's dad's friend, and it's just that apparently. The first two volumes really just there's no real sort of story for it. It's just kind of like set up with Ranma kind of adjusting to school life. The sexual tension between his potential suitor, and him thinking of interesting ways to make use of the fact that he can turn into a girl. The comedy is very, very typical of early 90s, late 80s shonen. That kind of like pervy sort of gags, things like that. Gags centered around like boobs. Finding, kind of walking in on somebody nude. It's very it's very typical of shonen manga of that time, and it did actually remind me it reminded me a lot of Dragon Ball, like Dragon Ball when Goku was a kid, because obviously that was centered more around gags rather than the action. And it was enjoyable for what it was. This is a 38 volume long series, so it's a massive commitment. And from what I understand, it is very much just more of the same. And I think, considering Rumiko Takahashi is such a prolific manga author and probably one of the best-selling authors of all time, one criticism I have heard of her manga is that she really just reuses the same sort of jokes and the same sort of story points like throughout all of her manga. Her manga can come across as very, very repetitive. So I don't think I'm in this for the long haul. I think this will just be something I pick up when I've got nothing else to buy. I don't think this is something that I will read for the entire 38 volumes, because I much prefer shorter series. And I simply just don't have the space or the time commitment to read something that otherwise doesn't really have like a central plot. And the only end goal to this is whether or not Ranma gets married to one of the daughters of his father's friend, which I don't really care for. The characters really aren't that deep for me to really feel invested in them. They're very much just kind of archetypes. That the main kind of female character is just your sort of standard tsundere character. Ranma's kind of like your airheaded, male protagonist who's good at fighting. So each character is very much an archetype and doesn't really kind of sway any further from there. And I don't really think I can stand that for 38 volumes, if I have to be honest. From what I've read, kind of peripheral to this, like reviews and things like that, it does get a little bit more fantastical. Like there's more fantasy elements kind of introduced later on in the series, but other than that, the story itself and the gags don't really change. So we'll see how it goes. It was a nice kind of finisher, to kind of end the month. I do have a couple more days until obviously I start with the September stuff, but I think I'll make an early start, and I've already picked what I'm going to be starting with next month. I'm very excited to read this next series. This will be the first thing I talk about for my September reading log. But that has been it for everything I read for August. I'll do another wrap up, or another. My brain's gone to sleep. Another recap. Sorry. So. Ranma, I'll do this in reverse order. Sky is Blue with a Single Cloud by Kuniko Sirita. Mujirushi by Naoki Urasawa. Downfall by Unio Asano. Oh My Sweet Alien by Koji Miyata, my first foray into the Monster Girl genre. Old Boy by Agaron Tsuchiya. Cardcaptor Sakura by Clamp. And Battle Angel Alita, Holy Night and Other Stories, which is the side story collection. So many kind of one-shots in this month. These monthly wrap-up videos are kind of making me realise how many one-shots I have in my collection, and short series as well. I think that's the majority really of my collection, and it's making me realise that I do much prefer reading things that are, less than 10 volumes. I do like the quick short reads. So, so there we go. Let's wrap it up. Let's have a look at the comments real quick. Thanks for showing again. Never heard of it. As a big samurai fan, I must buy it. Yeah, you're very welcome. And you do plan to get the other two from Tatsumi as well. Yeah, did you get the paperback ones, or have you got those hardback library editions? Because the paperback ones are still they're much more cost effective, and they look a lot. Personally, I think they look a lot nicer because they're a bigger trim size as well. So if you get the paperback ones, I'd like to know, because I've come across them, but I don't know what the quality of them is like. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it. Puffin, I seem to remember you showing a manga in your Geka collection called Poklan or something. What's that one about? Oh yeah, it's not a Gekiga. It's on my other shelf. Let me just go get it. So, I haven't read this yet, but this is the Poklan. Moto Hagio is one of the forerunners of 70s shoujo manga, and just for the artwork alone, it was a must buy for me. But apparently, this is about a family of vampires, and it's got like light shonen ai kind of elements to it as well, which is very much indicative of Moto Hagio's style. But yeah, it's the Poklan, and this was a cover by as well as an author by. I'd just recently read Otherworld Barbara by this author, and I absolutely loved it. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. But the main reason why I haven't read this is because it's not complete. There's one more volume to come out of this, which hasn't been translated or released yet. It doesn't have a particular release date. There's been a delay on the second volume coming out, so I'm waiting on that until I read it. But yeah, I guess I'll just read the back of it for you, just so you kind of understand. The Poklan, a race of vampirenellas who feed on the energy of the living, whiling away the centuries in a village of roses where time and geography have no meaning. Brother and sister, Edgar and Mary Bell, are initiated into the clan too young, and unless a wooden stake or silver bullet should lead to their demise, are doomed to live for eternity. Through these immortal adolescents and the mortals whose lives they touch, Moto Hagio explores what it means to live and die, to have loved and lost. So there you go. And she does have a really interesting sensibility of how she writes her characters. From what I read of Otherworld Barbara, lots of melodrama and thematics. But I think I'll enjoy it a lot. But yeah, that's the Poklan. Very looking forward to reading it at one point. Wiltsuitsville, thanks for joining. Berserk Deluxe Volume 8 comes out soon. Yes, I'm looking forward to getting that. I think it's slated for release in the UK, where I am, in early September. So it's probably something I'm going to pick up next month, along with the deluxe edition, the third deluxe edition of Blade of the Immortal. Bakamatsu, you got the paperback, cool. There was a big difference in price, to be honest. Yeah, well, these editions, I got these used, and they're not really great quality. They were quite, I think one of them's a library copy. So I do feel like I need to upgrade them or change them, swap them out for better quality versions. Since you weren't sure if you were going to enjoy it, you decided not to invest much. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Diego, A Drunken Dream and Other Stories was really good. Can't wait to read a Poklan. Yeah, I mean, Drunken Dream and Other Stories was the first Moto Hagio work that I read, and I think it's a great introduction given that it's a series of short stories. I absolutely loved that. Particularly I think it's the short story at the end about the ghost living near the tree. I won't say any more about that story just for fear of spoilers, but that one genuinely teared me up. It was a really, really sad one, but also really quite bittersweet as well. That one always sticks with me. So if anybody is interested in A Drunken Dream and Other Stories, it's I think it's just recently got a reprint. It's been out of print for years, so get on that. It's I highly recommend. Did you get Tezuka's Under the Air? Yes, I did. Yeah, I got it. Got it last month. I uploaded a whole video yesterday. It's in that along with Melody of Iron. So, I mean, you won't hear my thoughts on it because I haven't read it yet. The hardcovers for the Tatsumi books are really flimsy. I have to disagree. The ones I have are even though one of them is a library copy, it's pretty good quality. I find, unless you're talking about the which one other. I'm sure it's got another hardcover. Oh no, that's Yoshiharu Suge. Never mind. Story was amazing. I really like the story about the girl and her dog. I don't remember that one. But yeah, I mean, Tatsumi is another one who's, you know, if I ever come across his manga, I just have to buy it. You know, I was really disappointed in missing out on A Drifting Life. You know, that's gone out of print now, and I had that on my wish list for years. Yeah. Okay. Well, been quite a long stream actually, shorter than last month at least. But that's everything that I read for this month. I'm going to wrap this up now. Thank you very much for sticking with me, and for engaging. These are going to be monthly videos for anybody who's new, who's watching. I talk about everything that I've read in the preceding month, give my thoughts and overview. Anything I talk about is spoiler free, because obviously, you know, I would urge anybody who is interested in anything that I've talked about to go out and try and, you know, read it. So, you know, I hate spoilers myself, so I'd hate to spoil something for someone that would otherwise be, you know, something they may enjoy. But thanks for watching, everyone. Stick around for more videos through the month, and hope you enjoy the rest of your bank holiday. I'm gonna go have another coffee and relax.